Good afternoon. As the group charged with the creation of a master plan for Gouin-Laurentienne over the next 30 years with a focus on transportation, we'd like to spend the next few minutes sharing with you our vision of how Gouin-Laurentienne can become a more well-connected community. My name is Ted, this is Gabrielle. Sitting with us are our colleagues Vincent, Ellen, and Laura. We'll join us afterwards for a brief question and answer period, but in the meantime, we'd like to share with you some of the issues, the goals, and the objectives that we've developed over the course of the past 13 weeks. In studying the area, we've identified three key issues, three challenges that the area must face. The first is poor accessibility. The train tracks to the south, Rivière des Prairies to the north, the high degree of traffic volume along Laurentienne, and the size of the hospital parcel of land all serve as physical barriers that reduce the accessibility and the mobility of the residents. Second, we've identified poor community cohesion. These barriers, combined with demographic trends and differences, particularly between the south and the north, create a lack of interaction between these different communities physically and a difficulty for that to bring them together among community nodes. Third, we've identified an insufficient supply of goods and services. The lack of local employment and the lack of local commerce leads to more residents doing their shopping outside of the area and a low level of employment for the residents within the area. So from these issues, we'd like to share with you a vision of a Gouin-Laurentienne that's more livable, more walkable, more well-connected, and to put forward three goals: to improve the mobility and the accessibility of the area, to enhance the cohesion, and to increase the availability and the diversity of the supply of goods and services. We'd like to increase mobility and accessibility primarily by reducing the role of Laurentienne and La Chapelle as commuter corridors, and by reducing the barriers to internal and external connectivity. We enhance community cohesion by removing these barriers that prohibit and inhibit groups from interacting within the community while building community nodes that can bring the disparate sub-communities together. And we've increased the availability of goods and services by densifying certain corridors and transit-oriented developments to grow the population and increase the demand for goods and services. So these are the objectives that we'd like to share with you. But before we go into the concrete actions, we'd like to consider the daily life of a resident in the area. Consider a young woman living in the area south of the hospital, which is primarily residential housing, a high degree of recent immigrants to Canada, and a comparatively low income to the northern, largely homeowner area. In the morning, she might drive her car to drop off her son at school on Granite, her daughter at the daycare on Gouin, before having to drive downtown or to Marché Central to apply for a job. But her choices and her availabilities in life are dictated by the modes that are available and convenient for her. And in this case, and in this area, it's largely an auto-dominated mode choice. So I'm going to share with you one of our primary areas of focus, being the transportation network, which is sort of a broad strokes approach. But three key specific areas that we see for redevelopment and for densification are the Gouin Metro here in the north, the commercial sector on Laurentian Boulevard, and an area at the intersection of Laurentian and Salaberry that we've come to call Place Salaberry as the development of a transit-oriented community and commercial center, which Gabrielle will share with you shortly. So, in order to improve mobility and accessibility, enhance cohesion, and increase the availability of goods and services, three interrelated goals that we see as self-reinforcing, I'd like to share with you some of the interactions of our transportation network. Our transportation network is going to help to improve mobility and accessibility. This is best seen through the lens of the public transportation network and the active transportation network. The public transportation network, we foresee the installation of the metro connecting at Bois-Franc and at Gouin within the next 30 years. And while that is a major change, the way in which other modes of transportation connect with it is perhaps more important. The bus routes acting as feeder routes, as well as east-west connections, helps to resolve our objective of offering connections not only to the core of a city, but to adjacent communities. As well, the active transportation network helps to offer different modes within the area, enhancing internal connectivity. In particular, to the west of Laurentienne is a disused strip of land that was once a rail line. We see this being connected and filling a gap in the currently existing active transportation and bike lanes from the Bois-Franc station through Place Salaberry, through the commercial development on Laurentienne, and connecting to the existing riverfront paths down O'Brien and to the east and west. In this way, and with a policy of more complete streets throughout the residential area, we'd see more of a prioritization of active transportation and different modes of transportation to improve connectivity among the different areas and overall improve accessibility and mobility for the residents. In terms of enhancing cohesion within the community, this is seen through the interventions within the hospital corridor. The previous groups have discussed the area as a large and mostly inaccessible block of land. We would see opening up the land and removing the physical barriers in the form of the fences, which currently divide the area, and the large parking lot footprints that surround the hospital. The fences are a relatively easy method of negotiating easements with the property owners there in return for borough liability and maintenance of the pathways. The parking lots we'd see being consolidated in the northwest around Carré Gouin, the Gouin metro station, as part of a transit-oriented development of commercial and residential densification around the new metro station within an appealing public square. In this way, we'd seek to have the physical barriers reduced that prevent the interaction of different communities while building a community node at the Gouin metro that helps to bring different parts of the community together in these new residential, commercial, and public spaces. Our transportation network would as well seek to increase the availability of goods and services. This is best seen through Laurentian and La Chapelle. Currently, these are daunting commuter corridors, largely 6 lanes wide. We would see these being narrowed in their axis, particularly to 4 lanes, to 2 flow-through lanes, as well as 1 on-street parking and 1 dedicated bus lane, but as well made to be 1 direction, 1 way north for La Chapelle and 1 way south for Laurentian, acting as 2 parts of an overall whole in order to provide smooth flow of traffic while a more appealing pedestrian environment. We'd seek to reduce the traffic flow in order to reduce the role of the area as a commuter corridor while densifying the area at the same time, particularly at the current commercial development along Laurentian, as well as south along Place Salaberry, which Gabrielle will discuss here at Laurentian, to rise the height of the street along the length to 4 stories and higher at the transit-oriented developments. By rising the population, we'd seek to improve demand and thereby support a greater diversity of goods and services in the area. In that way, we'd seek to have the public transportation, active transportation, and overall transportation network, improving the mobility and accessibility of the area, enhancing cohesion, and improving the availability of goods and services. Now I'll leave it to Gabrielle to discuss with you the development of Place Salaberry here in the south at our intermodal hub.
Thanks, Ted. So I'll present to you Place Salaberry, which is it's an urban design project that will explain how we want to reach our goals. It will be, we propose a mixed-use area development using a high-density residential and commercial activities that are aimed to fill the daily needs of the population. We also want to build on the success of the YMCA to build a new community center in the Place Salaberry sector. We picked this area because we thought it was really central at the intersection of 3 major streets being Laurentian, La Chapelle, and Salaberry. It's also central because it will be within a walkability distance of the new transportation hub. Secondly, it's a good opportunity because the present municipal work area will move away, which will give space to new land development around in the center of Place Salaberry. Finally, we see this place as the southern entrance of the Gouin-Laurentian area, which we want it to be welcoming. So we want to create a beautiful space that people will feel welcome when they enter in. So the area, Place Salaberry, will reach our 3 goals of improving the mobility and accessibility of the population by increasing the connectivity within and towards the outside of the area. Within, as example, we will extend the Périno Street that will reach Laurentian to Cousineau Street, going a 1-way east side, which will open the access of the old commercial development and community center of Place Salaberry for the western residents of the area. But being east side 1-way, it will prevent the through traffic to use the residential area as a circulation place. We also create better connectivity by linking Place Salaberry through the active transportation network west of Laurentian, but also to the bike lane along the train track. Secondly, we will enhance the cohesion by creating a focus nodes for the different communities sub-area, which will then be able to interact together to enhance the cohesion of the whole area. Thirdly, we'll improve the availability of goods and services within the area by densifying the population, which will allow us to sustain a more diverse and supply of goods and services. Also, we'll present new services as the Y is doing for the sports infrastructure. We will want to present cultural activities like theater show We will help integrate the new immigrants of the area by giving French class or this type of activities. And that's it. With the YMCA, we'll give sports infrastructure. Recall earlier, Ted spoke about a resident living south of the hospital, which had a really hard difficulty going inside the area and leaving the area with her car because she was getting stuck in the traffic along Laurentien going south. Her name is Fatima. She's a recent immigrant of the borough. She has 2 young children. When she leaves the area, her house in the morning, she can walk now on an enlarged pedestrian sidewalk, going to the Granet Street at the elementary school to leave her oldest children. She now has the availability of taking the bus north on La Chapelle on a reserved lane to leave her youngest daughter at the daycare on Gouin. Then she can walk on Laurentien to go to Place Laurentien to drink a coffee with her friends and enjoy the new enlarged terrace on the street. Then walking continues, she takes the active transportation network going south to the west of Laurentien to go to the community center where she has a meeting with the community organizer that will help her prepare for a job interview downtown Montreal. After the meeting, she just has to go eat her lunch in the green spaces at Place Salaberry and then leave walking down south to the intermodal hub to take the metro to her job interview to the south. So we've explained how the issues are in the area, how we resolve them through 3 goals, within which some action will be placed to make sure that we improve access mobility to more connectivity inside and outside of the area by the removal of barriers and the increased connectivity between each of them. We'll enhance cohesion by creating focus nodes around community nodes at Gouin, Laurentien, and Salaberry Place. And finally, we increase the availability of goods and services through the densification of some area, which will help sustain a more diversified supply of goods and services. So, with the full implementation of our plan, Gouin Laurentien will become a welcoming, well-connected, and walkable neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Comments?
We have one behind you, President.
I think if you guys do achieve those 3 points there, it would kind of bring a sense of community to people, and then some of the branding issues might be solved there through the 3 groups that you guys are all discussing about some of the branding issues. And I think people feel that the community is a nice place and it's connected, you know, and there's eyes in the streets. It's not just these some places you go by where there's no one can access it. It might deter some of the vandalism and some of the issues of having a darker sense of community.
That was very much our hope. And I think
that's what I thought. That's what I got from the 3 visitations together.
It's very much an apt comment. The point we were trying to make about the interconnectivity of our goals, and that it connects very well with all the rest of the goals of the other groups as part of a comprehensive plan. So thank you.
How do you see Gouin Boulevard as an east-west connection and as a place? I mean, what we didn't discuss that very much. There's a new metro stop at Gouin. What's the Gouin corridor in 30 years from now?
One of the objectives that we had within the ambit of increasing mobility and accessibility is increasing connectivity to surrounding areas. We'd worried that with the connection of the metro, we might simply become a bedroom community for the core, people only wanting to move towards the center of the city. And we saw Gouin's ability to connect to adjacent communities, and particularly to act as a connection with the metro as a draw of people from adjacent areas to come in. That was the point of placing the Gouin Metro not simply at the intersection of Gouin and Laurentien, but more in an area where it acts as a destination in its own right, connecting the strength of the institution that is the Sacré-Cœur Hospital, but building a transit-oriented development around it that would bring people on the bus lanes along Gouin to that destination so they can access the downtown but access our area as well.
And what is the site of that TOD on Gouin? What is it currently?
The current site is primarily a parking lot and a Videotron beside it. So we have an area that there aren't that many video rental shops opening up in the city recently. We see that as
they're closing down.
yeah. We see that as an area that can be redeveloped, particularly with the large footprint of parking lots around it.
So I want to ask you the same question that Professor Bronstein asked. Phasing, what do you do first? I mean, you reserve land for the metro stop up in Gouin, do you work on Place Salaberry, do you...
I think the first step in the phase is identifying that there's a vast number of stakeholders involved in a project such as this. if the STM is going to site the Gouin Metro there, they are going to need to initially purchase the land. But if we're going to narrow the streets along Laurentienne and La Chapelle to try and create a more welcoming pedestrian environment, the borough and the city would need to undertake negotiations with the AMT due to the dedicated bus lanes currently existing there. So we need to identify all these stakeholders and find out what's actually within the realm of the possible. Redeveloping at Gouin and at Place Salaberry, we see this as land that's going to have to be purchased for the major redevelopments, but can be financed in part with these transit-oriented developments. Particularly around Place Salaberry that Gabrielle discussed, it's already municipally owned land. Monies can be earned by the city through selling off of land and development rights to developers in order to fund the other projects that we have in mind. And so by identifying the stakeholders, figuring out what these funding opportunities are from existing municipal strengths, we think that it's ambitious but overly realizable.
Could you just explain the bottom section? It just looks like a very wide expanse of transportation and...
Here on the right?
Yep, the bottom section there. Where is it? First of all, where is it on your plan?
This is...
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you like to?
The section is over here, and the idea we had, like currently there's a triangle over here that makes the traffic flow very like confusing. So our idea was to divide that triangle and put more public space towards both of the sides of the street so that it's balanced at both sides. And yeah, the section is right over here, and the idea would be to have a very wide, welcoming place so that we have pedestrian flow and traffic flow and bicycles and everything contained into one area. But the section actually shows like the connection, like this would be a corridor that's primarily for transportation modes, and the idea would be also to have more life in the pedestrian, like in the...
So what you have in essence are two public spaces. You have public space
we have public space, yeah.
in the east, in front of these buildings, and public space in front of the community center on the western side.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
Right, huh? So it's not one thoroughfare.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. Yeah.
Maybe one comment. You explained the reasons why you decided to use both La Chapelle and Laurentienne as true traffic ways, and with the additional offer in terms of public transportation. Why didn't you consider to reduce the traffic, the throughway offer to only one of those streets? I mean, we would foresee that La Chapelle, being more residential area, could benefit from not having that through traffic in the future. Was probably trying to concentrate everything on La Chapelle. So that's one concern. I think you have your reasons for choosing both, but I think in the future that might make sense to eventually use only one of those streets.
And that's very much one of the issues that we were grappling with in the redesign, particularly of the Laurentienne, La Chapelle, Salaberry intersection. As Ellen was mentioning, we contemplated different designs for how that would work, because it's a very confusing and chaotic location right now with commercial locations surrounded by heavy traffic streets on either side and residences separated by commercial in the middle of what is essentially a provincial highway. Some of the things that we've considered is the different character of the streets of Laurentienne and La Chapelle. Laurentienne is primarily, in our mind, can be redeveloped for additional residences, but has a commercial life that La Chapelle lacks. And so if it were to be, the decision were to be made to reduce traffic more on one street than the other, La Chapelle would certainly be the logical choice. Overall, we thought with the additions of public transit and the narrowing of the street, the improvement of pedestrian infrastructure, we can still have a constant flow of traffic, but an overall reduced volume that wouldn't necessarily be out of line with either a minor commercial street or a comfortable residential street. But your comments certainly align with the discussions that we've had.
Is there any potential for a bicycle path system to contribute to the notion of connectivity between different areas of the neighborhood?
Absolutely. One of the points that I was making around the issue of improving mobility and accessibility is the active transportation network. There's some areas where we propose new bike paths, particularly to the west of Laurentienne, connecting, say, from the transit hub.
North-south or east-west?
Running north-south along Laurentienne,
Okay.
west of Laurentienne, connecting with the Place Salaberry, with the commercial development of Laurentienne, and with the existing bike paths along the river, but as well as connecting along the A&T rail line right now, promoting east-west connectivity. Throughout the area, the active transportation within the hospital would link the current sort of black hole of transportation, but we think that by connecting the loop and filling in the gaps in the active transportation network, we can accomplish exactly that.
I just have a question about the bike path along the train line there. I'm just trying to envision it. Would it be up near the platform, or would it be alongside it?
I think we'd want the grade as heavily separated from the fast-moving trains as possible.
Well, yes, yeah.
Not to say that you were implying that necessarily.
No, I don't.
But
Kind of right down in the groove for that matter.
well, yeah, it would certainly be a lot faster. You can fix your handlebars. What you see alongside the rail track there are residential areas and some community gardens. It would make a very nice area to connect there, particularly with the intermodal station at Bois-Franc. So to have that not at the high grade of the rail line, but closer at the low grade of the residential and the commercial on Laurentienne.
You guys did a really good job of presenting, first of all, and did a really good job of interacting with your boards and specifically not using PowerPoint. So good job at that. My question is about lighting. Did you guys look at lighting around the neighborhood, and particularly around the hospital, because it has 24-hour use, around the hospital and around any night routes for night buses in the area? What's the state of lighting, and do you guys have any suggestions for improvements?
We did actually take a look at that, particularly around the pedestrian access. The hospital right now is accessed almost entirely from the north. There's very few other access points. And so if you're trying to get in from the south, you're entirely at a residential street and you're blocked. And so if our plan for active transportation network across the hospital would be put in proper lighting for it, would certainly be a concern, because it's a very isolated area with the developments of the nuns' convents around it. In addition, the connections along the active transportation network and along the bike paths. The rail line acts as a barrier across the south, and so if that's going to actually have crossings for pedestrians at the rail line as well, those need to be not only well lit, but also well designed and well secured, at-grade crossings being somewhat of a risk. Within the area at the moment, it has sort of standard Montreal residential street lighting, which isn't insufficient, but if there is going to be heavier redevelopment at Place Salaberry, at Laurentienne, and at Gouin, you need to take a look not just at increasing the lighting, but also mitigating light pollution for the existing residents. So lighting would certainly be a concern.
If there are no more comments, then thank you very much. We are going to take